The Miami Dolphins may have just dodged a bullet, and not a speeding bullet at that, just a bullet in general. And guess what? They might have avoided a huge potential distraction, or even worse, potential injury that could have led to disaster. We will discuss that. Also, the Miami Dolphins, they released their 2025 training camp schedule. Armstead once again compares Tua to Drew Brees, and Steve Young has some advice for the young quarterback. Plus, PFF ranked all the NFL rosters, and you'll be surprised where they had the Miami Dolphins on that ranking. Do me the favor, smash the like button, subscribe if you are new, and let's get into this.
Loses the football. Touchdown! Got it! You have got to be kidding me. Jalen Waddle has a Dolphin touchdown. And he will score! Field down the near side, that open. Touchdown! The run from Tua Tagovailoa. Touchdown! He's going deep. He's got it for a touchdown again!
Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan. Let's go!
What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason, and we are back here for another one. Appreciate all y'all for coming through today as we continue to truck on through this week, heading towards training camp day by day, inch by inch. Appreciate all y'all for coming through today. We got a couple things I want to talk about. Before we do, listen, maybe my theory about Jalen Ramsey and the Rams might have gone to the gutter today. The Rams re-signed cornerback Darian Kendrick. Remember, they had just released him last week. He's coming off like a torn ACL and such. And they brought him back. So that roster spot, A, is no longer open, and B, either is that spot in the cornerback room for the LA Rams right now. And man, we are now June 17th. We are well over 2 weeks beyond the June 1st date where Ramsey was going to be more, it was going to be more of an easy task to move off of him. And it appears it has not been that, as, we've heard the reports about some teams want him to move to safety. And because of that, a lot of teams, whether he stays at cornerback or he does move to safety, they're kind of balking at his costs. So, I mean, rightfully so. They probably all saw the same thing that we saw, where it looked like he was trailing a little bit more than he had in previous years last year. Obviously, that's never a good thing. So, I don't know. Continue to wait and see. Is this going to be a situation where we get to training camp? Is this going to be a situation where we're waiting for someone to get hurt so he can be traded for and plug into wherever said team is that has that void due to injury? I don't know. But, I mean, we're now over 2 weeks, past that, almost 2.5 weeks past that date. And it's all quiet on the Jalen Ramsey front. And that kind of puts us as the Dolphins in a precarious position. I always go back to this. You knew in February this was going to be a situation. Should have tried to move him before the new league year opened up, and then made a corresponding move when free agency did open up to fill that void. And they didn't. So, and this is going to be a situation where if you don't find a trade partner, he's going to sit out the year. He's not going to hit the football field for the Miami Dolphins under any circumstances. So I know some people are like, well, just, you know, just let him rot on the couch and blah, blah. Yeah, okay. Like, okay. The problem is, let's say the trade deadline comes and goes and you still don't have a buyer. Now what? Now what? Now you're stuck. Shout out to Jason Keck. He says, is he still counting? No. I guess that countdown ended, huh? Kevin says I'm going to all the scheduled training camps. Brother, I'm going to be working on something. I'm going to try and get down there. Probably, I mean, I've talked to Doug about it. I'm probably going to try and get down there for the Jags joint practice. That's what the early initial idea is. So we'll see how it all works out. But anyways, back to Ramsey. I mean, I think we're all just hoping for a resolution so we can move on with our lives. I mean, here's the thing. If they really are interested in Asante Samuel, let's say, I mean, he's going to start to be made available sometime in July by the sounds of it. Don't you want this situation worked out? Right? Don't you want this dealt with and over with? You know, you want to move on from this. So, you know, I think it's imperative that they get past this point, and it's just, but you know, at the same time, hey, they're not letting Jalen Ramsey's desire to be moved. They're not letting it hold them ransom for a, you know, minimal package. So at the same time, I mean, you got to kind of applaud them. But again, I always go back to like February. You knew this was a situation. You could have had this dealt with a long time ago, you know, but instead you waited until after free agency, until after the draft, when guess what? Everyone's basically worked out. Everyone's basically figured out what their roster is. Now you're hoping for injuries, or you're hoping for them to go into camp because, you know, clearly enough teams came out of mini camp and there wasn't exactly a rush to the phones to call Jalen Ramsey. So, and then you got on the flip side, Jair Alexander hitting the market recently, which all that does is create competition for you. So hopefully this thing gets figured out sooner rather than later. Speaking of cornerbacks, all right, the Steelers and safety DeShon Elliott agreed to terms on a 2-year, $12.5 million extension, including about $9.21 million of that guaranteed. Look at the price he's coming in at compared to what Javon Holland asked for, and them scrambling around to figure out how to replace a depleted safety room. Now, Ifeatu Melifonwu, I mean, let's be honest here. He's been, you know, fantastic, right? In OTAs and in obviously in mini camp. So I expect that to continue. It's just going to be, hey, Dante Trader, from what I heard, you know, he was making some noise. Ashton Davis, Patrick McMorris is going to get a chance too, but DeShon Elliott has ended up being a really good one. A solid player who's not costing a lot of money. Solid for us. He was solid for the Steelers, and he's just not costing a lot of money. At all. So, yeah, I don't know. Let's hope the safety room can stay healthy. That's all I know. Let's hope the safety room can stay healthy. Because if they stay healthy, we got something. And now we only got to worry about the corner room. Now, I saw someone asked if we would have got rid of Jalen Ramsey before, would there have been severe penalties? So you would have taken on like $25.5 million in terms of dead money, and your cap savings actually would have been negative. But on the flip side, you wouldn't be dealing with this whole, we don't want to take on that. And I mean, if you really want to, if you really, really, really want to show some wizardry, restructure him and then you trade him. Right? You spread money out into the void years and then you move him. But that's what I would have. I mean, that's another option too. So I mean, there would have been options in terms of moving money around, but obviously they didn't want anything to do with that. And now you've basically let this situation hold you hostage to an extent. Now, I said earlier, props to them for not letting it fully hold them hostage in terms of the asking price they're looking for. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I think we all just want this over with. All want this over with so we can move on with our lives. 110%. How much cap space do we have right now? We have about 13.736 million. If you trade Jalen Ramsey, you are going to free up about another 9.9 million. So you will be at about 23.6 million in cap space after you get rid of him. So, and then, I mean, if you were to imagine if you could find a partner for Tyreek Hill, if you could find a partner for Tyreek Hill to take on, you save $14.97 million in cap. You could actually add, what's crazy is if you do the math, you could add like another 24.8 million in cap space if you were to able to find trade partners for Tyreek Hill and Jalen Ramsey right now. You could actually double your cap, basically. Your cap space would go up to like 46 million. Problem is, what do you got to spend it on? You're going to end up rolling it all over, right? That's the issue. And he's another one where if you would have tried to trade him pre-June 1st, you would have had to get creative with the cap and with his contract because he would have had penalties of like 28.297 million in terms of dead money and about negative 598,000 in terms of cap space. If you call his bluff on sitting, isn't there cap savings and the rollover option? No, you'd still have to pay him. But you could roll over all the money. I mean, you know what's crazy? Think about this for a second. So they're going to look to free up another 9.9 million on top of the 13.7 million they have right now, right? What's crazy about that is you do the math, right? You're over $23 million and look at how budget conscious they're being still, right? Look at how budget conscious they're being with everything, new deals, new money, new players coming in. Like they got all this money freeing up and it's clearly, hey, we forked out all this money. Let's get him healthy and let's see what you guys actually got here, Mike and Chris. Let's see what you actually put together if they can stay healthy before we start continuing to open up that checkbook. Like at this rate, let's be honest here, at this rate, this team's going to roll over like over $15 million. Now, on the flip side here, and this probably isn't talked about enough, it does give you flexibility at the trade deadline. Like, if you are in a position come the end of October, right, where you're 6-2, 7-1, you're gonna have a lot of space on the books potentially where you could add a contract. And yeah, there are teams out there willing, like I'm sure Atlanta would use him as a corner role. LA would use him as a corner role. Yeah, there's teams out there that would use him as a corner. But I think teams would also use him in that star role where you'd see him, you know, in the nickel on the boundary, you know, up top on the perch. I mean, he wants to do that, right? So I just don't think he wants to do a full-time role. And I'll be honest with you. You know why? It's because he wants to be paid like a corner. you know? So, Edward says Miami made Ramsey the number 1 paid cornerback in the NFL September 2024. Now dealing with the oppressive contract. I mean, they made Tyreek Hill a top 3 paid corner, and they made Tyreek Hill a top 3 paid wide receiver, and they're dealing with that contract too. Right? Smash that like button, guys. Get it up there. Let's go. Over 200 of you in the room. Smash that like button. All right. So let's get that over 100. So let's get into everything today. And let's start off with some good news. I swear this man, everything. I don't know if Ross slipped a couple hundreds. I don't know what's going on here, but Noah Lyles, his race against Miami Dolphins star receiver Tyreek Hill, well, it has been canceled. Olympic 100-meter champion Noah Lyles has canceled his much-anticipated showdown with Miami Dolphins wide receiver Tyreek Hill due to personal reasons. Hill had challenged Lyles to a 50-yard race days after the American sprinter won gold in the 100 meters at the Paris Games last year. Lyles said that plans were to hold the race against Hill this weekend in New York Times Square. We were very deep into creating the event, Lyles told reporters at the Stagwell Global Sport Beach event in Cannes, France. In fact, it was supposed to happen this weekend. Unfortunately, there were some things, complications, personal reasons that it just didn't come to pass. But we were full on. We were going to shut down New York's Times Square and everything. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hill has boasted that he could have beat Lyles in a race, leading to plenty of trash talk between the two men. When Lyles won his fourth consecutive 60-meter indoor title in February, playfully tore off his race bib to reveal a scrawled message that Tyreek could never. Hill, a 2-time state track champion in high school, ran a 100-meter prelim in a personal best time of 10.15 seconds in Sherman Oaks, California last Friday. Playfully responded to Lyles by holding up a handwritten sign that read, "Noah could never." Hill trolled Lyles on Tuesday by posting a meme to X in response to the news of the race's cancellation. And he did the Homer Simpson one. Lyles said people, including potential sponsors, thought the planned race against Hill was all just talk. A lot of the people didn't believe it to be true. They thought it was just, this is them talking online. The companies didn't believe it's real. I mean, thank God. I mean, you guys heard me kind of go off a little bit after he had his little preliminary race on Friday. Like, what's the point, dude? You ran a 10.15 100-meter dash. This guy ran a 9.79. All right? Tyreek Hill's time would have been 50th best in the NCAA this year. Okay? So it's not even like he's top 10 in the NCAA. Let's go. And if it was supposed to be this weekend, do we really think in 1 week he's going to go from 10.15 to racing in the 9s? I thought this was, I thought this was never, and it always came down to a few things for me. Okay. Distraction. This is what we're doing for clicks right now. You don't need this distraction. None of us need this distraction. I've been pretty consistent with this. I wanted nothing to do with this. We are in a position where we need to win football games. You need to get your wrist better. We can't afford distractions right now. We need Tyreek Hill at the top of his game come training camp to prepare so he's at the top of his game come week 1. Well, I mean, the fact of the matter is the focus should be on winning football games, not racing Noah Lyles for social media clicks. And that's where we're at with that. Very frustrating. It's one thing if we just came off a couple playoff wins. I think all of us would have a little bit more leniency and be like, okay. But another thing I didn't like about it was it felt like, the other thing that really I didn't like about it was this. It felt like another example of Tyreek Hill doing whatever he wanted. right? Mike McDaniel didn't even know he was having the preliminary race on Friday last week until it was brought up to him at the media availability. You know? So, it's just further proof of how this guy I can do whatever I want. So, I mean, that's number one. Number two, avoiding any potential injury. And then you're going to say, reason they run all the time. Listen, all right, you want to talk about Canada and the U.S.? Do y'all not remember the Donovan Bailey race? Right? With all the trash talking that was going on. All right? Do you guys all not remember Donovan Bailey race, at the Skydome? Right? It was, what's it called? Michael Johnson and Donovan Bailey for a 150 meter race at the Skydome. Remember that? A lot of you might be too young for that, but I remember it. Funny enough, June 1st, 1997. So 16 days ago was like the 28th anniversary. Do you guys not remember this? And do you guys remember what happened to Michael Johnson? Johnson pulled up with a quad injury. Right? And this was all because of what? All the trash talking. Because remember, Donovan Bailey from Canada, he set what in the 90s, was it 96 Olympics? That he set the 100-meter yard dash record. Right? Yeah, because I think Johnson won the gold medal in the 200, right? He ran what? A 19.32 in 200 meters. Donovan Bailey's 100-meter performance he ran a 9.84. Right? So, that was at the time, I'm almost pretty positive at the time, that was the world record. So, I mean, and what happened? That was a guy, Michael Johnson, who's been training all of his life, who's been running all of his life. And what happened? He ended up getting injured. So, yeah, I don't know. We are, remember, and with the Canadian team also, Bailey, we defeated the Americans also in that 4x100 meter relay in 1990, 96? So there was a lot of trash talking going on right there between Michael Johnson and Donovan Bailey. And actually, I think Bob Costas was behind it because he split Johnson's 200 meter time in half. And it was 9.66, and he declared him the world's fastest man or whatever, when the world record was what Donovan Bailey had run at the time. So, my whole point of that is, if a professional is going to get injured in a, exhibition face-off, what could happen to someone who doesn't run for a living? So, I'm just glad we don't have to deal with this anymore. I think it's absolutely ridiculous that we're even getting to this point. I mean, again, the distraction. We hadn't won anything since Tyreek's been here. And I know what he's about. He's legacy chasing right now. That's what this is all about. This is legacy chasing. If he could go out and beat Noah Lyles, adds to his legacy. That's where we're at right now. So, I'm just glad it's over and done with. It's not happening. We don't got to deal with this nonsense. Thank God. All right. So, there you go. No more Noah Lyles race for all of you that were actually looking forward to it. All right. Where are we going to go? So let's go to Steve Young. Steve Young was on Rich Eisen, and he was talking about Tua Tagovailoa. And we're going to go over what he said. Yeah, the Dolphins are done with him this year, after this year, for sure. They could have, if they could have moved off that contract right now, if someone would have been willing to take it, they would have moved off him right now. All right. So, Steve Young, he had some stuff to say about Tua Tagovailoa on Rich Eisen. Let me play that for you guys, and we'll talk about it.
So let's talk Tua a little bit, Steve. I don't know if you heard his comments yesterday after Chris Greer, the general manager of the Dolphins, said that Tua, quote unquote, needs to be available. Taking chances and risk is unacceptable to us. That Tua said the message has been received, quote unquote, doing everything I can to stay available for the guys. Like I said before in the past, nothing changes with that. It's knowing when it's time to give up on a play, end quote. Do you have any advice for Tua on that front, Steve?
Emmett Smith said it the best. Know when the journey's over. There's a real talent, sophistication, and maturity. You can attack. You can still make plays. Just you're going to have to do it. You're going to have to end it earlier. And that's just how, he's gotten in trouble when you try to be heroic. Josh Allen has stayed healthy while trying to be heroic, and you just got to be smarter than as you age, trying to figure it out. But if you're not going to attack the line of scrimmage, if you're not going to give that threat, you will not be in the Super Bowl. And so he has to figure out a way to present that threat without putting himself at greater risk.
How do you do that?
Rich, come on, it's football. You put the helmet on, you got to go out and play. So no matter what happens, you're at risk. So that's just a fact. Now, how can you reduce the risks to not, spike? And that's why I say that's where the maturity is. But how do you do it? You can't, you can and you can't, right? It's the game. And that's why people love football, is because it's got, nobody cares about what they're getting paid the moment of impact, right? They're just, it's a game that draws out the truth. And in many ways, Tua's going to have to, he's in a really tight spot, that's a fundamental truth. He's in a super tight spot to be able to play the game the way it needs to be played, and also make sure I remain available. It's a hard spot for him.
Well,
all right. So remember, Steve Young, just to give you a little bit of a history, not only is he left-handed, dealt with 7 documented concussions in his career as a starter in the NFL. Now, remember, he didn't become a full-time starter until 1991. So he really only started from 91 until 99. So he only 9 seasons as a starter, really, with the San Francisco 49ers. Right? He started 1 season in 86 with the Tampa Bay Bucks. It wasn't good, but he started to become the starter in 91, and then 92 he took over full time as a starter, right? And I mean, again, you look at this, he had to retire after 99 because of all of the concussions. So this is a guy who knows what he's talking about. Remember, he was a lethal, he could use his legs, right? We're talking about a guy who ran for over 500 yards in 92, right? Ran for over 400 yards in three seasons out of his, 8 as a full-time starter? So, and he said something key there. I don't know if I necessarily agree with it fully, but he said if you can't threaten the line of scrimmage, you're not going to go to the Super Bowl. I don't really believe that. I think the Lions have a good enough roster to go to the Super Bowl. Does Jared Goff threaten the line of scrimmage? Tom Brady. Tom Brady won how many Super Bowls? How often did you see him threatening the line of scrimmage? He beat Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes can threaten the line of scrimmage much better. Did Drew Brees ever threaten the line of scrimmage? Did Peyton Manning ever threaten the line of scrimmage? You see where I'm going here? There are pocket passers and there are quarterbacks who can win and go the distance from the pocket. So I don't necessarily believe in that, but I do believe in what he said, that he's just got to do a much better job at protecting himself. And again, are we going to hear from a guy with a better resume to discuss that? also left-handed, also has that playmaking ability in him. You know? And you're talking about a guy who won Super Bowls. Just the fact of the matter, he's won Super Bowls. So, and remember, he was also a former Super Bowl MVP, right, in 94. So, I mean, great advice from one of the great quarterbacks of the 90s. Steve Young was so fun to watch. If some of you are too young and didn't get a chance to watch him, man, he was fun. Steve Young was a great quarterback. One of my best friends growing up was a massive 49ers fan, and he loved Steve Young. He loved Steve Young, man. So, I mean, you look at the transition from from Joe Montana to Steve Young. Wow, great years for them, eh? Even when Jeff Garcia went there, he was pretty good. When he came from the CFL and went there, he was actually like really good for them. So, but Steve Young, no lies told. All right. Now, Terron Armstead. He was asked some pretty interesting questions about what he thinks this team could do and what one of the keys is to this team and stuff like that. And he gave some interesting answers here. And he made a really interesting comparison. That was obviously the comparison for Tua coming out of college. So, let's see what Armstead had to say here.
Terron, just looking at the former organization as you left the Miami Dolphins, a lot of what went wrong last year and what's gone wrong over the last half decade has been the injuries that have plagued Tua. Sitting here as an insider, and we're the outsiders, but as an insider, what are some of the things that you can point to as to why Dolphins fans and why NFL fans should have confidence that Tua is the guy for the Miami Dolphins long term?
I wholeheartedly believe in Tua, believe in his ability. I've seen him snap into a mode that looked familiar to me from Drew Brees. That's why I have no problem making that comparison. The consistency of that, him snapping into that like assassin mode, that sniper mode, that's that championship DNA that we want to see more consistently. I believe he can do it. I believe he can. We can keep him upright up front. I think the Dolphins season it comes down to Tua's availability, and if we can get Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips healthy on that defense. I think those two guys healthy with Chop Robinson, it changes the whole dynamic of the team.
So if that were to happen, what are the expectations then for the Dolphins? We talking playoffs? We talking completing for the division? What do you see them being able to achieve?
If we can get those three factors, those three guys I named, it's no limit to me. I feel that strongly. It's no limit.
Wow, strong words from Terron Armstead. Number one, I got to say, shout out to Terron Armstead. I like how he keeps talking in the we sense, like, because he's still part of this organization. We see him going out there for OTAs and mini camps with the team. I want him to become a coach. I want him to become a part of this organization. I'm sure Sean Payton is already knocking on his door, trying to say, come on, come on, come on. I love how he's still in Miami mode. Man, this is a guy you need to make an ambassador for the organization moving forward. And this is a guy you need to make a intricate part of that coaching staff potentially. I think he's going to retire a Saint. I really do. I really do. Right? But anyways, some of the key things he said there. First of all, the Drew Brees comparison. 110%, 10-17 man. Drew Brees had an O-line, right? Also had a run game, right? Deuce McAllister, Reggie Bush, etc., 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 right? We've seen the run game they've been able to have in New Orleans pretty consistently. You can go way back before good old Alvin Kamara has been there. We've seen them be able to pump out running backs through the Drew Brees era to where we are. And it's why, because they've always had a good O-line. Even when they were going through their cap hell the last how many years, the Saints have never, ever compromised on that offensive line. And they still continue drafting to it, like Trevor Penning and stuff. right? That's the one thing they've never compromised, is that offensive line. And it's allowed them to always have a run game, no matter who the quarterback was. Whether it was Drew Brees or Taysom Hill, whatever the case may be. You could tell Sean Payton, that's where the shift in that organization's foundation and identity changed, whether Sean Payton was going to be the coach and after Sean Payton was the coach. They saw what worked and they stuck to it. So, yeah, 110%. But I find it very interesting that he mentions not only to his health, but Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb. You know, he's of the belief that if those two stay healthy, that's the X factor on defense. And maybe it's because he is looking at our corner room and saying, holy geez, you need as much help as possible off those edges. I don't know. But he named 3 specific people. And I mean, you could even go deeper, Terron. Austin Jackson's going to be a key piece. Look at how that run game dipped. Look at how the passing game and the quick passing game in space dipped without Austin Jackson. Right? So, I mean, you could name him as another health factor if he wants to name those 3 guys. Add Austin Jackson to that mix, who's already dealing with another injury. And Armstead's of the belief, you heard him, that the sky's the limit, basically, for this team if everyone can stay healthy. So, you know, and he did say we got to keep him upright. Keeping Tua upright is a big key to a lot of this. And I said, you know, a lot of the concussions haven't been on, especially last year, aren't on the offensive line. That hip pointer injury that he had in his surgically repaired hip, that was on the O-line last year. 110%. So, listen, I know people are in the chat. Can we just get him an O-line? Can we not have a bottom 5 O-line? If these guys stay healthy, if Patrick Paul stays healthy, Jonas Avayanaya, Aaron Brewer, if James Daniels looks more like the guy he was pre-Achilles injury than a guy freshly coming off an Achilles injury, and you know what I mean by that, and if Austin Jackson stays healthy, this O-line will be fine. If those guys, if James Daniels looks like a guy who's clearly recovering from an Achilles injury and Austin Jackson can't stay healthy, that whole right side is going to be compromised if James Daniels plays there. And if James Daniels plays on the left side next to Patrick Paul, he could compromise Patrick Paul's first year as a starter if he doesn't look fully healthy. B-Rob nailed it. He said this team has too many ifs and buts. 110%. This is what happens when you're bargain bin shopping for great talent coming off injury. Basically, look at it this way: your biggest addition to the offensive line up until this offseason was Terron Armstead. And what happened? In and out of the lineup because of injury. Now your biggest addition since he left, James Daniels, we don't even know what he's going to look like. So, and what's crazy is, you know, we all love the James Daniels signing, especially if he's healthy. Fact of the matter is this: if he wasn't coming off fresh of an injury, would he even be a Dolphin right now? Would they even have paid the money it would have taken for James Daniels if he would have stayed healthy? You and I both know the answer to that. That's what's sad. We would have ended up with Will Hernandez or something. You know? Like, we would have ended up with some old AG vet. We'll see. All right, PFF. They went through and they ranked the 2025 NFL roster, strengths, weaknesses, and X factors for every starting lineup. All right. So it's going to be estimated reading time 72 minutes. Wow. Thank God I ain't reading it. So they got Philly at 1, obviously, because they're coming off, right? Baltimore at 2. I'll give you the top 10, then I'll jump to us. Detroit Lions at 3. Kansas City at 4. At 5, they have the Buffalo Bills. All right. At 6, the LA Rams. At 7, the Texans. At 8, the Vikings. At 9, the Broncos. And at 10, Tampa. Where is Miami, might you ask? Well, let's scroll all, and Washington's at 11. Let's scroll all the way down here for you. Yes, they have the Miami Dolphins ranked. They got the Vegas Raiders ahead of us, for God's sakes. They got them ranked 24th. They have Miami as the 24th best roster. That is crazy to me. I don't know. Oh, come on. Like, that. Okay, listen. I get you want to be down on us, but that's nuts. Like, I don't know what. I already tell all of you guys to not trust their grades and trust your eyes more. Now I got to tell you to trust your eyes more than an article. So here you go. Let's listen to their reasoning. The biggest strength in 2024 is a run defense. The Dolphins placed 6th in PFF run defensive grade at a 73.9 and 2nd in rushing yards before contact allowed per attempt, 0.8 yards in 2024. That unit should only get better in 2025 with the arrival of first-round defensive tackle Kenneth Grant, in addition to the return of edge defenders Jalen, Phillips, and Bradley Chubb. Okay, so if they had a 6 and you think it's going to get better, so that tells you what? They're going to be at least top 5 run defense. Okay, so already this isn't adding up. Right now you're telling me that you think they're going to become a top 5 run defense, but somehow they're 24th in terms of roster ranking. Okay, let's keep going. Biggest weakness in 2024, passing game that regressed. You should retitle that to a quarterback that couldn't stay healthy. The Dolphins orchestrated one of the league's best aerial attacks in 2023, placing 5th in EPA per pass and 2nd in both team PFF passing grade and PFF receiving grade. They placed just 16th in EPA per pass this last season, as well as 25th in team PFF passing grade and 21st in PFF receiving grade. Tua Tagovailoa's PFF passing grade dropped by more than 18 points, and he missed 4 games with a concussion. Protecting Tua is paramount to Miami's passing game rebounding in 2025. Okay, so, I mean, yeah, I think this was more on the coach, right? I mean, obviously the 25th team passing grade, well, when you start Tyler Huntley and Skylar Thompson, I mean, what do we expect? Them to give us top 15, top 10? Their biggest X factor for 2025 for the Dolphins is Patrick Paul. All right? One of the lone bright spots on the Dolphins' offensive line was left tackle Terron Armstead, who ranked 4th among tackles with an 89.4 PFF overall grade last season. However, he announced his retirement after 12 years. Patrick Paul, a 2024 second-round pick, is set to assume that role after struggling on 338 snaps during his rookie season, posting just a 44.9 PFF overall grade. He'll need to be much better during his sophomore campaign, as Tua Tagovailoa's health is directly correlated to Miami's success. I mean, if you want to go like biggest, Terron Armstead's a big X factor, 110% on the offensive line. But I could make the argument that what we just talked about, James Daniels' health, is just as big of an X factor. Austin Jackson's health is just as big of an X factor on that offensive line. I mean, you might as well have just put the X factor being the offensive line. Let's be real here. Their rookie to watch is Jonah Savaiinaea. Savaiinaea, another player tasked with keeping Tagovailoa's jersey kept clean, will likely begin his career as a Dolphin starting right guard. He posted an 84.7 PFF pass blocking grade across the past 2 years as Arizona's right tackle. Yeah, I think he's going to be phenomenal. I think he's going to be a rookie to watch for sure. For sure, he's going to be phenomenal. So you're not going to hear a lot of pushback from me. And this is what the projected starting lineup is for the Miami Dolphins. So they got Tua at quarterback, Devon Achane at running back with Jalen Wright, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Malik Washington as their top 3 receivers. Jonnu Smith, they got him here. I mean, they got Jalen Ramsey here because he hasn't been traded yet. Aaron Brewer, James Daniels, Jonas Savaianaya. And then Zach Sealer, Kenneth Grant, Benito Jones, Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, Jordan Brooks, Tyrell Dodson, Jalen Ramsey, Storm Duck, and Kader Kohu, and Ifeatu Melifanu and Ashton Davis. And you can tell this is just off. They're picking who's going to be starting based off the grades. So, I mean, I think ranking us at 24th, that's wild. 24th? Best roster? Not even a top 20 roster? Wow. I get we got to prove ourselves 110%. So take us out of the top 10. But this is a top 20 roster. I mean, you can't tell me the Raiders have a better roster than us. You know, I wouldn't even agree that the Seahawks have a better roster or the Steelers have a better roster than us. I don't even think the Colts have a better roster than us or the Cardinals, and they got them ahead of us. The Bears, I don't think, have a better roster than us. They got them ahead of us. So the disrespect is real, and this is what happens, man. This team's got to prove themselves. Last year was a disappointment for everyone who had expectations and for all the people in the media who predicted they were going to take a next step. Again, I go back to this. I mean, you're seeing this now. A lot of people think we lost the offseason when we win every other offseason. You see the expectations in the media are this low right now. Usually we come in with high expectations off of winning an offseason. And then we fizzle out in December and January. Now that we're coming in with lowered expectations and an offseason where a lot of people think we didn't win, maybe they show up in December and January a little bit more. Right? It's all about finding that balance between talent and the hunger this team had in the last half of 2019. Right? Remember where we were winning games we shouldn't with Fitz at quarterback? And we just had that hunger. Everyone was working for a spot the next year. It's about finding that. It's not about, you know, the problem has been having complacent stars hasn't led to much success for the Miami Dolphins. And stars chasing legacies. And the Miami Dolphins, they announced some training camp dates today. All right. How excited are all of you, right? So, obviously, July 26th is the opening of training camp. Love it. August 21st is Jacksonville joint practice. I'm thinking that might be what I'm aiming for. So, yeah. I'm probably going to miss... I am going to be back for our first preseason game, right? I will be back from my 10-year anniversary trip before our first preseason game, but I'm going to miss a few of these dates. Like I think the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 6th I might actually miss. We'll see what happens in terms of when we're leaving and when we're back and stuff. But, the 2nd, 3rd, and 6th is what I might miss. But I'm going to be aiming for the 21st, all right? Let me know in the chat which practices are you going to be getting out to? And man, hey, we are a month and 9 days away from training camp opening up. And you know they're going to report earlier than that, right? Probably going to report on the 23rd or the 24th. So, you know, and then a couple of days getting things ready. And then boom, we'll get into it. The 26th, it opens up to fans. I can't wait, man. And don't forget, the Dolphins are also going to travel to Detroit and Chicago for 2 preseason games, but also joint practices. Now, those joint practice dates for all of you planning to attend the Detroit Lions and the Bears joint practices, those have not been announced yet. So, but we will play the Bears August 10th, then the Lions August 16th, and then August 23rd, we will play the Jags at Hard Rock. So I know I'll be back in time for that August 10th game. And I'll keep you guys updated on where on what the plan is for August. So All right, we're month and a bit away from finding out how real all this culture change talk is. So, and the fact they only have one joint practice with Jacksonville, that's going to be turned up, baby. That's going to be turned up. So, can't wait. Guys, smash that like button. Subscribe if you are new. I'm going to be back on the next one. Anything breaks, I'll be back tomorrow, Thursday, planning on being live with Neil and moving forward from there. All right, guys? So do me the favor, smash that like button. Smash, smash, smash. It means more than ever right now as we get into this lull of the season. You smashing the like button goes a long way. Over 300 of you in the room right now. So go ahead and smash that like button. I will see you guys on the next one. Until then, you already know what time it is. Fins up all day, every day. Have a fantastic, fantastic rest of your day, morning, evening, wherever you are, whatever time of the day it is. Love y'all.